Priya believed she had found true love with Raj, but on their wedding night, a secret he had hidden for years was revealed, showing that even the brightest dreams can hide the darkest truths. The house gleamed under the soft glow of thousands of fairy lights, each corner decorated with meticulous care. Silk drapes swayed gently in the evening breeze, and vibrant flower arrangements lined the entrance, filling the air with a delicate fragrance. Every detail of the wedding had been planned to perfection, from the golden lamps illuminating the courtyard to the intricate patterns of the bride's red lehenga, shimmering as she moved gracefully among the guests. Friends and family arrived in gleaming cars, laughter spilling out into the night as they offered blessings and smiles, convinced that this would be the happiest night of their lives. The bride's face radiated joy, her smile warm and composed, yet beneath it lay a quiet intensity, an unspoken anticipation of what was to come. She moved from guest to guest with polite greetings, performing the role of the perfect bride, her laughter echoing lightly, blending with the distant music and the chatter of excited relatives. The groom appeared every bit as confident and elegant as the celebration suggested, his tailored suit sharp, his posture commanding. He shook hands, posed for photos, and accepted congratulations with ease, a man in control of the image he presented. Yet behind the smiles and polished appearances, subtle tensions hovered, unnoticed by the revelers. The air, while filled with music and celebration, carried a fragile sense of unease, as if the walls themselves could sense the secrets hidden beneath the surface. No one could imagine that within hours, this seemingly joyous house, radiant and alive with celebration, would become the stage for a nightmare that would shock everyone and leave its mark on history. The perfect wedding night, so full of promise, was about to transform into an unforgettable tragedy. The bride moved gracefully through the crowd, her laughter soft but sincere, as if every smile could erase the faint tension she felt inside. She engaged with friends and relatives, offering polite gestures and warm glances, trying to convince herself, and everyone around her, that everything was perfect. Her hands fluttered over the hems of her lehenga as she adjusted her jewelry, the bright gold and ruby ornaments catching the light with every movement. Every so often, her eyes met her husband's across the room, searching for warmth, for a sign of the connection she had hoped for, and she forced a smile that hid the growing questions in her heart. She whispered greetings to distant cousins, posed for pictures, and nodded politely at every toast, but inside, a quiet uncertainty lingered, gnawing at her joy. She had dreamed of this night for months, imagining herself as a bride glowing with love and happiness, yet a subtle, inexplicable tension clung to her as she tried to immerse herself in the festivities. She clung to the hope that her husband's distant glances or occasional hesitation were merely nerves, temporary discomforts that would fade once the formalities ended. She moved with grace, laughter spilling over her lips, each moment an attempt to be cheerful and loving, even when small hints of unease whispered in the corners of her mind. While guests danced and congratulated the couple, the bride felt a quiet dissonance, a gap between what should have been joy and what her instincts warned her. She tried to push the thought aside, focusing on the celebration, on the music, on the approving smiles around her, even as an unspoken question hung heavy between her and her husband. Amid the clinking glasses and laughter, a subtle storm of realization waited to break, unseen by all, ready to transform the night forever. Beneath the charm, the groom carried a secret no one could have guessed, a hidden reality carefully concealed behind his confident smile and polished demeanor. From the outside, he appeared every bit the devoted and attentive husband-to-be, participating in every ceremony, posing for pictures, and exchanging pleasantries with family and friends. But beneath the tailored suit and courteous gestures, he lived a life that was entirely different from the one everyone believed. He was gay, and his heart had always been drawn to men, never women. For years, he had learned to navigate social expectations, to maintain appearances, and to hide his truth in plain sight. Every romantic gesture toward his bride, every carefully chosen gift, every word of affection was part of a performance, meticulously crafted to conceal the reality of his desires. He avoided intimacy with women, suppressing his true identity, while secretly living a life that allowed him freedom to explore the connections he could not reveal. The wedding preparations, the grandeur of the ceremony, the smiles and excitement of friends and family, all of it was a mask, a fragile illusion held together by careful planning and secrecy. Even in private moments, he felt a tension growing within, a constant awareness that the truth might one day surface, threatening to destroy the life he had built in secret. That night, as the bride moved through the celebration with hope and joy, the hidden reality of the groom's life hovered like a shadow over the festivities. The secret that had been carefully guarded for years would not remain hidden much longer, and its revelation would ignite a chain of events that would transform a night of celebration into one of unimaginable horror. On the wedding night, as the house grew quiet and the last echoes of celebration faded, the bride felt a mixture of excitement and anticipation. She approached her husband with hope, eager to share the intimacy and closeness she had dreamed of for months. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the nervous joy of being newly married. She smiled, trying to convey warmth and affection, leaning closer to him, imagining the life they were supposed to begin together. But the moment she reached out, the subtle hesitations she had sensed over the past months crystallized into something undeniable. The groom recoiled slightly, a distance in his eyes that froze her heart. Confused, she glanced down at his hands, searching for any sign of comfort or connection, only to find none. Then, with a calm but unsettling composure, he revealed the truth she had never imagined. He took out photographs, images that depicted a life she had never known, pictures of his gay lover, moments of intimacy and love he had shared with another man. The shock hit her like a lightning strike, leaving her breathless, her mind racing to process what she was seeing. The man she had trusted, the one she had hoped to build a future with, had lived an entire life in secret, a life that excluded her in the most personal and painful way. As he spoke, confessing openly that he was gay and could never love her in the way she had imagined, the room seemed to shrink around her. Joy turned to betrayal, anticipation to horror, and in that instant, the perfect wedding night shattered into a series of moments that would lead to a tragedy no one could have foreseen. Shock rippled through the bride like a storm she could not control. Every heartbeat pounded with a mixture of disbelief, betrayal, and growing fury. The life she had imagined, the dreams she had held close for months, seemed to crumble in an instant. The grand house, once radiant with celebration and laughter, now felt suffocating, like a gilded cage closing in around her. Each decorative corner, the flickering lamps, and the lingering scent of flowers suddenly seemed to mock her. In the quiet of the bedroom, away from the prying eyes of family and guests, the realization of what had been hidden gnawed at her from within. She had married a man who could never love her in the way she had hoped, a man whose secret life had been carefully concealed beneath layers of charm and sophistication. The betrayal was personal, intimate, and unbearable. Emotions collided inside her, grief for the life she thought she was starting, rage at the deception, and confusion over the future that now seemed impossibly uncertain. Her mind raced, weighing the impossibility of forgiveness against the raw, uncontrollable anger that had been sparked. The anticipation, the hope, the careful cheerfulness she had maintained throughout the evening now gave way to a storm of darkness. The tension in the room thickened, every sound amplified in her heightened awareness, the ticking of the clock, the rustle of silk, the distant murmur of leftover celebration in the halls. It was a moment suspended in time, where the line between love and rage blurred, and the stage was set for a decision that would forever alter the course of her life. The perfect wedding night had been shattered, replaced by an intense, brewing darkness that could no longer be contained. Hours had passed since the revelation, yet the storm inside the bride showed no sign of abating. The room, once warm and inviting, now felt cold and oppressive, the shadows stretching across the walls as if mirroring the darkness within her mind. Every thought raced, fueled by betrayal, rage, and a sense of absolute injustice. The groom lay unaware of the depth of her fury, still trying to process the earlier confrontation, while the bride's emotions reached a breaking point. In that tense silence, every heartbeat echoed like a drum, every breath sharp and deliberate, as if the room itself held its breath in anticipation. Then, in a moment that would forever define the night, she acted. The violence was swift, deliberate, and final, a manifestation of the betrayal that had been simmering for months. Her hands, trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve, struck with precision, targeting the part of him that symbolized the intimacy he had denied her, the bond that had been feigned and corrupted by deception. The act left him incapacitated, the reality of the horror settling over the room like a heavy fog. In the aftermath, the grandeur of the wedding and the celebration of love seemed distant, replaced by a grim and suffocating stillness. The once bright room was now a stage for tragedy, every detail of its decoration reduced to background for the dark, irreversible choices made in moments of raw emotion. The bride, trembling yet resolute, realized the enormity of her actions, the irreversible shift in their lives. The night of joy, anticipation, and hope had been irrevocably transformed into a night of terror and irrevocable consequence. Silence descended on the house like a heavy curtain, smothering every sound of the night's earlier celebration. The soft music from the wedding had long faded, replaced by a stillness so profound it seemed to press in on the bride from all sides. She sat on the edge of the bed, her body trembling, her mind racing with the enormity of what had just occurred. The act of violence she had committed had irreversibly changed everything. The life she had envisioned as a new bride was gone, replaced by a grim reality she could neither undo nor escape. Outside, the faint echoes of celebration continued, guests laughing, distant chatter, the occasional clink of glasses, yet none of it penetrated the suffocating bubble of horror she now inhabited. The luxurious room, once a symbol of love and beginning, now felt like a prison, its golden lamps and decorative drapes casting long, sinister shadows across the walls. Every object seemed to remind her of the betrayal that had led to this moment, every detail whispering the weight of her actions. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, and yet her mind could not rest. It replayed the revelation, the photographs, the confession, and the swift act that had followed. She realized that even if she tried to explain or hide what had happened, the truth would linger, unrelenting, shaping the days and years to come. The enormity of her act settled over her, heavy and unyielding, and she felt a mixture of fear, sorrow, and grim determination. In that quiet, haunted house, the night had transformed from a celebration of love into a crucible of horror and irreversible consequence, leaving the bride alone with her thoughts and the shadow of what she had done. By the early hours of the morning, the house had fallen into an eerie stillness, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the faint rustle of leaves outside. Authorities arrived, responding to an urgent call that no one could have anticipated. The grand house, which had been a place of celebration just hours earlier, now became a scene of meticulous examination. Investigators moved quietly through the rooms, their expressions grave, their eyes scanning for clues in the soft glow of flashlights. In the bedroom, the scene spoke volumes without words, the disarray of the sheets, subtle signs of struggle, and the evidence of a deliberate, violent act left no doubt that something horrific had occurred. Each step the investigators took revealed another layer of the tragedy, slowly peeling back the carefully maintained illusion that had cloaked the groom's secret life and the bride's desperate response. They found photographs, messages, and subtle traces of the confrontation that had erupted in the night, pieces of a puzzle that hinted at motives, emotion, and concealed truths. The bride's actions, precise yet driven by fury and betrayal, began to take shape under the scrutinizing eyes of the law. Neighbors and relatives, previously unaware, were interviewed, their recollections fragmented, filled with small details that had seemed insignificant until now. Slowly, the investigators reconstructed the timeline of events, revealing a night of intimacy, revelation, and unthinkable violence that had unfolded behind closed doors. Every discovery added weight to the narrative, illustrating a story of secrecy, betrayal, and rage that could not remain hidden. The house, once vibrant with joy, now bore the heavy presence of scrutiny, judgment, and the grim shadow of what had been done, leaving the world outside stunned and whispering about the horror that had occurred within. As the investigation unfolded, the layers of the groom's hidden life began to emerge, sending shockwaves through the family and everyone who had attended the wedding. What had seemed like a perfect union was now exposed as a fragile illusion, carefully maintained for months, perhaps years. The groom's secret, his true identity as a gay man, was finally brought into the light. Photographs, messages, and accounts pieced together a life that had been hidden from everyone, a life that explained the bride's extreme reaction. Each new detail painted a more vivid picture: the deception, the pretense of affection, the carefully curated charm that had masked a reality entirely different from what the bride had believed. For the bride, the revelation was a double-edged sword. It justified the rage and betrayal she had felt, yet magnified the horror of what she had done in response. Families, friends, and social circles struggled to comprehend the scale of the secrecy, the intensity of the emotions involved, and the catastrophic outcome that had followed. Experts, investigators, and psychologists debated the motives, analyzing how hidden desires and unspoken truths could ignite such a violent chain reaction. The story became more than a murder case. It was a cautionary tale of the fragility of trust and the destructive potential of secrets left unspoken. Even those who had witnessed only fragments of the events were stunned by the complexity, the betrayal, and the intensity of human emotion at play. As the world slowly absorbed the shocking revelations, the bride's actions remained the grim centerpiece, a reminder of how a single secret, when exposed at the wrong moment, could transform a night of celebration into a tragedy that no one could have foreseen or forgotten. The story of the bride and her gay husband became a chilling tale that echoed far beyond the walls of the once celebratory house. Families whispered in hushed tones about the events of that night, replaying every detail, trying to make sense of a tragedy that seemed almost impossible to comprehend. The house itself, once filled with laughter, music, and joy, now stood as a silent witness to the darkness that had unfolded within its walls, the echoes of that fateful night lingering in every shadow. For the bride, life was irrevocably altered. The memory of her actions haunted her, a constant presence that she could neither escape nor erase. Each day brought the weight of her decision, the knowledge that a single night of revelation and rage had changed everything she had ever known. Friends and family struggled to reconcile the person they had thought they knew with the one who had committed such an act, grappling with feelings of disbelief, sorrow, and fear. The broader world absorbed the story with a mixture of fascination and horror, as media, whispers, and public discussions dissected the night's events, turning the tragedy into a cautionary tale of secrecy, betrayal, and the consequences of hidden truths. Even years later, the events remained a stark reminder that the most joyous occasions could harbor shadows capable of erupting into irreversible horror. The legacy of that night was not just the loss of a life or the destruction of a marriage, it was the haunting truth that hidden desires and unspoken realities, when exposed, could transform love into violence and celebration into a nightmare. The story endured as a stark, unforgettable testament to the darkness that can lie beneath even the most radiant smiles.